بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين المصطفى أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله يا غريب كربلاء. رزقنا الله في الدنيا زيارتكم وشفاعتكم في الدنيا والآخرة. أما بعد، فمما روي عن سيدنا مولانا أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام في كتابه لابنه الحسن سلام الله عليه أنه قال: ووجدتك بعضي بل وجدتك كلي، حتى كأن شيئا لو أصابك أصابني، وكأن الموت لو أتاك أتاني، فعناني من أمرك ما يعنيني من أمر نفسي، فكتبت إليك كتابي هذا مستظهرا به إن أنا بقيت لك أو فنيت، فإني أوصيك بتقوى الله أي بني، ولزوم أمره، وعمارة قلبك بذكره، والاعتصام بحبله. وأي سبب أوثق من سبب بينك وبين الله عز وجل إن أنت أخذت به. صدق مولانا أمير المؤمنين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Last night we began our discussion, brief mini-series on the Shahada of al-Imam al-Hassan salamullahi alayhi, where we said that we will be discussing three parts of the life of the Imam salamullahi alayhi, that we have divided his life in three parts. The first part we discussed yesterday, which is from his birth till the Shahada of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and Sayyidah al-Zahra salamullahi alayha. And that part was approximately 7 years, approximately 7 or 8 years of his life. Tonight, if Allah gives us tawfiq, we'll take a look at the second part in the life of al-Imam al-Hassan salamullahi alayhi, and that is with his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi, the time he spent with his father after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and the Sayyidah al-Zahra alayhi salam, which lasted for approximately 30 years, from the year 11 after Hijrah, early in the year 11 after Hijrah, until the year 40 after Hijrah. That first part we discussed last night was the upbringing part, how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and the Sayyidah al-Zahra alayhi salam played a role in the upbringing of al-Imam al-Hassan and the preparation of al-Imam al-Hassan and al-Hussein alayhim as-salam for their roles as imams. We also discussed the greatness of al-Imam al-Hassan salamullahi alayhi in that discussion from yesterday. Today, inshallah, we will take a look at the period now that we can call the preparation for imamah, at-ta'bi'ah wa-tahyi'ah lil-imamah. So Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is now preparing al-Imam al-Hassan salamullahi alayhi to become the leader of the ummah after him. Tomorrow, if Allah gives us tawfiq, we'll discuss the third part in the life of al-Imam al-Hassan salamullahi alayhi, which is after the shahada of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam until his shahada salamullahi alayhi. And that's about 10 years, from the year 40 till the year 50 after Hijrah. So the Imam salamullahi alayhi left this dunya approximately at the age of 47. Today, if Allah gives us tawfiq, we'll discuss this middle period in the life of the Imam salamullahi alayhi. Just after the shahada of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and his mother As-Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam until the shahada of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. This period, the Imam salamullahi alayhi spent the first 25 years of that period, يعني approximately from the year 11 after Hijrah till the year 35 after Hijrah, he spent it watching and seeing his father's interactions with the three caliphs who came after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi before Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. He was closely observing what is happening, how the Imam salamullahi alayhi is dealing with the situation. And then comes the period of al-Khilafah al-Zahiriyya for Imam Ali alayhi salam. He is always Khalifatullah. He was the Khalifa of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi from day one. But the people deprived him of the Khilafah in the worldly context until the year 35 after Hijrah, when the Khilafah came to him salamullahi alayhi. Towards the end of the year, the historians say that the third Khalifa was killed in Dhul Hijjah, in the month of Dhul Hijjah. So that's when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, then people came to him and they pledged their allegiance to him to become the Khalifa. The total time for the Khilafah of Imam Ali alayhi salam, according to Ibn Abi al-Hadid al-Mu'tazili, is 4 years and 8 months. So it's just below 5 years, the total duration. So we will talk, inshallah, about those two periods. In the period where the Imam salamullahi alayhi, Imam Ali alayhi salam, was not given the power of the worldly power. Like I said, he is Khalifatullah. Al-Imam al-Hassan salamullah alayhi saw how his father interacted with the three caliphs. Now, immediately after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, the events transpired. The Imam saw all the calamities, all the tragedies that were inflicted upon the house of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and upon his mother Fatima alayha salam. It is said also that when the Imam salamullahi alayhi was young, 7 years old, 8 years old, as we mentioned, when his grandfather left this dunya, the first Khalifa came to power. He went to the first Khalifa while he was on the minbar one day. So Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam comes to the first Khalifa while the first Khalifa was on the minbar. And Imam al-Hassan looks at him in front of the people, of the companions, and he tells him, step down from the minbar of my grandfather and the minbar of my father. Now, that's a very important statement, by the way, brothers and sisters. People know this is the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And just literally a couple days ago, they saw the Prophet, holding him, carrying him, kissing him, etc., etc. So now he comes here. At the same time, now the first Khalifa really did not know how to interact with the situation. This is, in his perspective, this is a child. A child is coming and telling him, step down from the minbar of my father and my grandfather and my father. So he looked at him to kind of diffuse the situation. He says, yes, this is the minbar of your grandfather and your father. He kind of asserted his statement. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam later said that, he came in and he said to the first Khalifa, I did not tell him to do this. Don't try to accuse me that, Ya Ali, You're sending your sons now to come and attack me while I'm on the minbar. This did not come from me. And the first Khalifa said, I understand. Okay. So you find Al-Imam al-Hassan, salamullahi alayhi, right there from this childhood, supporting Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and Imamah, defending the truth. Now this, of course, he saw his mother, Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, defending Imamah, becoming the first shaheeda for Imamah, the first person to be martyred for the sake of Imamah. Salamullahi alayha. At the same time, then he started observing his father. Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi, while he did not approve of the khilafah that came before him, but he did not completely disconnect himself from them, because he knew that they will need him. And hence, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will support them. And he did. It is narrated by Sharif al-Radi, rahimahullah, Sharif al-Radi, who compiled Nahj al-Balagha. He has a book called Khasa'is al-A'imma. In that book, he says that the first problem encountered the first Khalifa after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, yani when he took the position of Khilafah, one day they brought him somebody and they told him, this person was caught drinking. What shall we do with him? The man who was caught drinking says, I am new to Islam. I just became a Muslim not too long ago. And no one told me that drinking is forbidden in Islam. I did not know. So now the first Khalifa is wondering how to deal with this situation. Here is someone who was caught drinking, but he claims that he did not know. So what do you do? So he turns to Umar. He says, Ya Umar, what do you think we should do here? He told him, are you asking me? He said, then who shall we ask? He says, Man laha ghayr al-Hasan. He says, who else then other than Ali ibn Abi Talib, salamullahi alayhi? Call him. So they call Imam Ali alayhi salam. Salman goes with him. Salman goes with Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi, to the masjid. And the Imam comes. The Imam, salamullahi alayhi, looks at them and says to the Khalifa, send 2 men with him to go around the city of Medina, asking people in the city of Medina, did anyone tell this man that drinking is haram? It's not allowed. If no one in the city of Medina says that we told him, yani he did not know. Khalas, we'll assume that he did not know and you let him go. But if some people say, no, we did tell him, then he deserves the consequence. And so the Imam salamullah alayhi resolved the problem. Salman, the Imam then left. Salman then asked the Imam salamullahi alayhi, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you actually helped them? This is something fresh. This was the first question that came to, according to Sharif al-Radi rahimahullah, the first question that came to the Khalifa, the first Khalifa. So this issue is very fresh. So he tells him, you help them? Why would you help them after what they've just done? They've just taken the Khilafah. The Imam salamullah alayhi answered him. He said, so that they would not have an excuse on the day of judgment. And then the Imam recited this ayah, أَفَمَنْ يَهْدِي إِلَى الْحَقِّ أَحَقُّ أَن يُتَّبَعَ أَمَّنْ لَا يَهِدِّي إِلَّا أَن يُهْدَى. He says, who is more worthy of being followed? The one who guides you to the truth, or the one who does not know how to guide? Rather, he needs guidance. How do you judge? That's what the ayah says. So the Imam recited this ayah, telling Salman now they would not have an excuse. Khalas. Here, they were just presented with a situation, a problem. They did not know how to help. They needed guidance themselves. I came and I provided them with the guidance. I did not have to have any guidance. I gave them the guidance. So this proves to them that who is now supposed to be the Khalifa, who deserves to be the Khalifa. So the Imam salamullahi alayhi continued this tradition while not approving of the Khilafah, But he did not completely disconnect himself from them, so that they continue coming to him for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second Khalifa, many times, لا أبقاني الله لمعضلة ليس لها أبا الحسن. May Allah not keep me for a problem for which Imam Hassan is not, Abu al-Hassan, Imam Ali alayhi salam is not there to help me with it. Imam al-Hassan is seeing this. Now the second Khalifa became into some very difficult situations that the Imam salamullah alayhi came. It is narrated by historians when they wanted to conquer the Persians, when the Persians were about to be conquered. Now the Persian is an empire. This was not something easy. This was like a big deal. So some of the Muslims, he sent some Muslims to go there and to kind of see what is the situation, what are the circumstances, what is happening. One of them was Ammar ibn Yasir. He goes. Now these guys used to go with the permission of the Imam salamullahi alayhi. So Ammar, Salman, whenever they used to go, those Shia, the companions, they would seek permission from the Imam gives them permission. So they would go. So Ammar then writes a letter to the second Khalifa, Umar ibn al-Khattab. He writes him a letter saying that these Persians have prepared some big army and their intention is to come all the way to Medina and to arrest you and kill you. They're khalas, they're determined here. So it is said by the historians, when he received the letter, the Khalifa, he started shivering to the point that they could hear his teeth cracking, he was so scared. He got so scared that the Persians are coming after me. So he immediately called some people. He said, we need to have a meeting right now, urgent meeting. So they bring some people, Uthman ibn Affan, others, and then he calls Imam Ali alayhi salam. And so they have an emergency meeting. He says, we're being attacked. What shall we do? So some of the Muslims, they started giving their opinions. So, some of them said, for example, you send people from Bilad al-Sham, send people from Yemen, etc., etc., send an army from here and there. And then he said, okay, I will also go. I will go with them so that I can give them the moral support. Moral support. Now, this is the same person who in the Battle of Khaybar, what did he do? Al-Tabari, who's a Sunni historian, in Tarikh al-Umam wal-Muluk, read what he says about what Umar did. The first man also ran away. But the second man, when he ran away, رجع يجبن القوم ويجبنونه. The first man ran away. When he ran away, he came back, he said, Ya Rasulullah, you sent me with a bunch of cowards. They said, Ya Rasulullah, we were not the cowards. He himself, the guy, he was the first to run away. We were not the cowards. يجبن القوم ويجبنونه. Nonetheless, so this man who's got this attitude, now he says, I'm going to go and give them moral support to the army. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam could have said to him, yeah, go. This is the great advice, let's just go. And when he could have gone, Imam Ali alayhi salam could have basically very easily have taken Khilafah and taken the power of Medina in his hands, because most of the Muslim army would have gone. The men would have gone in an army, and this is like in Persia. So this is a bit far away from the city of Medina. And Imam Ali could have done something. However, this is not the akhlaq of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. We have a riwayah, al-mustasharu amin. When someone asks you for advice, you have to give an honest advice. Give an honest advice. On this note, brothers and sisters, this is just, although I'm going to be transgressing a little bit, this also applies in marriage. If someone comes to you asking you for advice on a potential spouse, either the boy or the girl, give an honest opinion. If you know something about the boy that is specific, that may not go well, let's say, with this person. Like, for example, he's stingy. I know this boy, I know him really well. He's good, he's prays, he fasts, but he's very stingy, for example. Then say it. Don't hide it. Or you know something else about this child. Maybe he has some kind of mental health issue that might play a role. Or this girl may have some issues. Say it. Don't hide it. Because some people, sometimes they say, we don't want to, break the marriage or ruin the marriage. This is not room for this. Yani just imagine if this was your own son. If this was your own son, or if this was your own daughter, and you wanted to marry her to this person, what would you like to know about this person? So similarly, this person who's asking you wants to know this information. As long as it relates to the marriage, then you speak about it. Something that belongs to the akhlaq, the manners, or the deen of this individual, then mention it. But if it's something that's irrelevant, it's got nothing to do, for example, his great-grandfather, for example, was not a Muslim. Later so who cares about his great-grandfather was not a Muslim? He may have become a mu'min. Yani his grandfather may have become a mu'min, and mashallah, they're all now mu'mineen, and so on and so forth. So who cares about his great-grandfather, for example, in that context? Something that may not be relevant, you don't need to mention it, but something that is relevant about his manners or her manners, something about his religion, her religion, something about, for example, their well-being, health, that may impact the marriage, then mention it. Don't hide it. Okay? So that's important. Al-mustasharu amin. Yani someone who asks you for your advice, you have to give an honest opinion. So going back here, Amir al-Mu'mineen now gives an honest opinion. This is mentioned in the books of history. The Imam Salamullahi alayhi tells Umar, the second Khalifa, he says, first of all, the Imam sits quietly. Umar, after listening to those advice from people, he turns to Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullahi alayhi. He says to him, what's your opinion? He says, well, the people have given you their opinion. He says, I don't need their opinion. I want your opinion. You tell me. What shall I do? Subhanallah. He knows who is Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullah alayhi. He knows who is Ali ibn Abi Talib. And he knows that Imam Ali alayhi salam will give him an honest advice. Yani if he had doubt about the opinion of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he would not have insisted on his opinion. This tells you that he genuinely believed Imam Ali will give him a genuine advice. A sincere advice. Now, of course, Imam al-Hassan is observing all this. Salamullahi alayhi. He sees how his father is interacting with these people who took the khilafah away from him. But for the sake of Allah, for the sake of Islam, for the sake of religion, the Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen then tells the second Khalifa, he says to him, listen, if really you want my advice, I think what they're saying is not good. Why not? He says, we have the Romans, who are also our enemies. We have the Persians on this side, the Romans on that side, and we have the Abyssinians down there. Okay. If you're going to take men away from Yemen, that region, then what have you just exposed? You've exposed that region to the Abyssinians for them to attack us. If you take people from Bilad al-Sham, that Levine region, and you go to Iraq, then what have you just exposed? That region for the Romans. The Romans will start attacking us. So he says, I don't advise you taking men from. The last thing we want is to have two war fronts. Right now we have the Persians, for example, from this side. The last thing we want is to have another war front from the bottom or another one from the top. We need to keep it all in one area. So he says, then what do you suggest, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali? What's your suggestion? He says, my suggestion is you take people from that region, from that area. First of all, they know the region. They know the geography of the area. So they'll be your best support. Second, it will not expose us. You still have the men in the Levine region, Bilad al-Sham. In case the Romans want to attack, we have people there. We have men in Yemen. In case the Abyssinians want to attack us, we still have people there. So we are well protected here. And you should not go. Don't go. He said, why not? He says, because if the Persians see you, they will know that you are the leader. So they will put all their efforts at killing you. And hence that will actually give them motivation, drive. It will encourage them to fight with all their power to kill you because you're the leader. And once the leader is killed, what happens to the morale of the army? It's immediately broken down. It's destroyed. So he says, you should not go. This way, at least they know that the leader is still back home. Even if they win against this army, it's not that the leadership has broken. Yani the Muslims have not been broken. They'll stay strong. And now that you have men from that region fighting them, they know the area, they know the region, and you give them some support, then inshallah things will go well. And he drew the plan of the attack. He drew the strategy. And indeed, subhanallah, he listened to him, and the Muslims won, even though they fought against the Persians, who were much stronger in power. But they were defeated. And Allah brought victory to Islam through the barakah of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. Now, Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam is watching all this. This is a very important lesson, because he knows there will be a time when also the Khilafah will be taken away from him. So how does he need to deal with the situation? How does he need to interact? Not to completely distance himself, cut himself away from the leadership, but of course not to approve of the leadership. He doesn't approve of it, but not completely disconnect himself from it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, when he became the Khalifa, he writes in one of his letters, he says to the people of Egypt, if it weren't for the protection of Islam and the sake of Allah in protecting Islam, I would not have supported those people before me. I supported them not because I approve of their Khilafah, but it is for the sake of Islam, so that Islam is not broken, Islam is not destroyed. So he makes it very clear now, why did I support? And this is also important because there are people today, people who criticize Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, or they're critical, they say, well, if you claim that Imam Ali is the Khalifa after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, then why did he support Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman? He would give them advice sometimes and so on and so forth. This is the answer. He supported them not because he approved of their Khilafah. He supported them because of the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to protect the religion of Islam, so Islam is not destroyed. That's the reason he supported them. Otherwise, he disapproved of their Khilafah, and he continuously discussed this with them, repeatedly, in more than one occasion. And this third khutbah in Nahj al-Balagha, when he became the Khalifa, Shaykh Shaqiyya, clearly explains his position from those three people who came before him. Very clearly. So, the same thing when Uthman came to power. Uthman comes, again, Imam Ali alayhi salam many times goes and admonishes him that what you're doing is wrong. If you continue this way, bringing your family closer, Bani Umayyah, you bring them and you start giving them money and making them governor here and governor there, you're going to turn people against you and they will kill you. So don't do it. But he did not listen to the Imam salamullahi alayhi until he got killed. So that period now finished, which took approximately 25 years. Al-Imam al-Hasan salamullah alayhi, as I told you, brothers and sisters, he was observing what does his father do, how he interacts, how he deals with the situation. Then the people, they all come to Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. They come and they tell him, we want you to become the Khalifa. So the Imam salamullah alayhi becomes the Khalifa. He becomes the Khalifa, and immediately there's turmoil. 3 wars were fought. The first war is the Battle of Jamal. Talha and Zubair. Zubair is Imam Ali's is cousin from his mother's side, Safiya. Safiya is the aunt of Imam Ali and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. She's from Bani Hashim, and she was a good lady. Safiya, Ammatun Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Her son is Zubair. Zubair was a good man. The riwayah in Nahj al-Balagha from Imam Ali alayhi salam says, لا زال الزبير منا أهل البيت حتى نشأ ولده المشؤوم عبد الله. He says Zubair was of us, Ahlul Bayt. Yani, subhanallah, how close he was. He was of us. Until his wicked son, Abdullah, grew up. Yani the son deviated the father, wal-'iyadu billah. Which is a very important lesson for us, brothers and sisters. It's important for us to love our children, but not to the point where they don't follow the haqq. And this is important. I see this happens a lot, especially when there is marriage problems. You know, when there are marriage problems between the husband and the wife, you find the parents, usually they take the side of the child. It's important, brothers and sisters. This is where taqwa Allah comes, where the muttaqi. The muttaqi, this is where it comes. It's important for the muttaqi to sit down and listen to the sides, really look at the situation, and take the side of the truth, not the side of my child. If my child is wrong, I will tell him, you're wrong. This is not right. Not just because she's my daughter or he's my son, يعني خلاص, he's ma'soom or she's ma'sooma. This is very important. Usually, people take the side of their children, usually. Nonetheless, here is an example. Love your children, but not to the point where they take you away from the truth, the haqq. Zubair was of Ahlul Bayt until his son, unfortunately, deviated him. Talha was there, and they conspired with Aisha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Although Talha and Zubair were the first to give their allegiance to Imam Ali alayhi salam as the Khalifa, they were the first to betray and turn against him. With the wife of the Prophet Aisha, they raised an army and they went to Basra to fight a war against Imam Ali alayhi salam, because the governor of Basra invited them. He said, come here, I will raise an army to support you guys. So they came to Basra. Nonetheless, at that point, Imam Ali alayhi salam started using Imam al-Hassan salamullah. Imam al-Hassan was in his early 30s now. Okay, we're talking the 35 year after Hijrah. Remember what year was he born approximately? Year 3 after Hijrah. So now the year 35 after Hijrah, 35, 36 after Hijrah. So the Imam is approximately 34, 33, 34 years old. So he's now, mashallah, in his youth and strength. And this is the time when the Imam salamullah alayhi is preparing his son now for the Khilafah. Yani khalas, now it's time of preparation. First of all, he saw how his father dealt with his predecessors when the Khilafah was not in his hand. So he learned what strategies he needs to implement when the Khilafah is not in his hand. How he needs to deal with the situation. And that we'll talk about tomorrow, inshallah. That last 10 years of his life, salamullahi alayhi. Then he saw when the Khilafah is in the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, how you deal with situations. So he saw that the Imam salamullah alayhi ruled with justice. The Imam, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, started using Imam al-Hassan. For example, we'll mention 3 uses of al-Imam al-Hassan by Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in important matters. 1, when the month of Ramadan came, Imam Ali alayhi salam told al-Imam al-Hassan salamullahi alayhi, go to the Masjid of Rasulullah, go to the Masjid and tell the people they should not be praying Taraweeh in Jama'ah. Yani the Imam salamullah alayhi started now to undo some of the deviation that was done by his predecessors. The riwayah says, and this is narrated by Muslims in the books of history, that Umar ibn al-Khattab one day comes to the masjid at the time of month of Ramadan. In the evening, he finds Muslims are praying individually. Because salat al-mustahab, not wajib salat. Not wajib salat. It should not be prayed in jama'ah. It should not be prayed in jama'ah. Now some people say, what about salat al-Eid? Salat al-Eid is mustahab now. But some of the fuqaha say salat al-Eid was actually wajib at the time of the ma'soom. And that's why it's permitted to be prayed in jama'ah, even though today it is mustahab, in the absence of the ma'soom, in the ghayba of the ma'soom. But when the ma'soom comes, the salat al-Eid becomes wajib again. Okay, so that's why. Same thing with salat al-Jumu'ah. Salat al-Jumu'ah wajib in the presence of the ma'soom, but it is mustahab in the ghayba of the ma'soom. And that's why it is permitted to be prayed in jama'ah. So sometimes there are these things. But generally speaking, salat al-mustahabba should not be prayed in jama'ah. For example, you cannot come and say, let's pray salat al-layl in jama'ah. Yeah, you can't. It's mustahab, it's a great deed, good to pray salat al-layl, but not in jama'ah, individually. Nonetheless, so the people came, Umar ibn al-Khattab comes to the masjid, He sees the Muslims are praying individually, which is at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa, this is how they used to pray, individually, because it's a mustahab salat. He looked at this and said, why are they praying all individually? Like you have one person doing sujood, one person is in ruku', one person is doing this. I don't like this. He says, all of you guys get together. So they get together and he says, okay, pray jama'ah now. And he appoints somebody, he says, you lead the jama'ah. So they start leading the jama'ah. He comes the next day, he finds everything is organized. In his opinion, this is all good. He says, ni'mal bid'ah. What a great innovation. This is good. Bid'ah. Now, Muslims agree, and you hear many Sunni speakers today, they start their khutbah with, قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله كل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Every innovation is ضلالة, is a misguidance. Every misguidance takes the person to Jahannam والعياذ بالله, the hellfire. They mentioned this, and this hadith is known. Okay, well, you have here the Khalifa of the Muslims saying this is a bid'ah. But he says this is a good bid'ah. So then they classify. They say there is good bid'ah and there is a bad bid'ah. Since when do we have a good bid'ah? Bid'ah hasana or bid'ah sayyi'ah? Well, since when do we have this? So nonetheless, you see how people started to make excuses because you can't argue against it. Did he make an innovation? Yes, he did. At the time of the Prophet, that never happened. But how can you justify it? Well, this is a good bid'ah. It doesn't make sense. That's not there. When we have something, a bid'ah hasana, it has a root in the religion. It has a root in the religion. Yani, for example, what do I mean by this? Is it important? Is it good to have majalis for Imam al-Hussein alayhi? Absolutely, it's good to have majalis. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa cried for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Okay, so the person says, okay, then can we have a majlis where we have not just one person, we have 100 people, 1,000 people, all commemorate al-Imam al-Hussein and remember and cry for Imam al-Hussein. Is that a good thing? Yes, of course it's a good thing. But the person says, well, at the time of the Prophet, he cried for Imam al-Hussein. We say, yes, he cried for it, so it's okay for us to establish a whole majlis and we remember al-Imam al-Hussein salamullahi alayhi. It has a root in the religion. There is roots for it. Once it has roots in the religion, we can justify it, then we can build upon it. This is not something bid'ah, a whole new thing that never has any, for example, roots in the religion, or it goes against the teachings of the religion. We cannot go against the teachings of the religion. And rahimallah, Sayyid Sharafuddin al-Musawi, rahimahullah, in his book, An-Nassu wal-Ijtihad. This book has been translated to English. Nas and Ijtihad. They kept the same title. Nas and Ijtihad. You'll find it online. May Allah bless his soul. He's written whole bunch of these events where the Prophet or the Qur'an clearly says things should be done this way, and people come and say, no, change them this way. The wudu. Sayyid Ali Shahristani has written a book called Wudu'un Nabi, the wudu of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. If you read that book, the wudu was changed at the time of Uthman. Uthman changed the wudu. Other than that, Abu Bakr, Umar, all of them used to do wudu the way we do. You wash your face and then you wash from the elbow to the hand like this. You wipe your head, you wipe your feet. But when the third Khalifa came, he changed it. Okay. So now, which wudu? How do you do the wudu? You follow the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi or the sunnah of so and so. Interestingly, Sayyid Ali Shahristani, he writes in his introduction in the book, he says, after I wrote this book, I sent this book to several scholars, some Sunni scholars too. He says, one of the Sunni scholars wrote back to me. He told me, what have you done? He says, ever since I've read your book, whenever I do wudu, I start shivering. I start not sleeping the night. Like, am I doing the wudu of Rasulullah or the wudu of so-and-so? Third Khalifa. He says, what have you done? You really made my life miserable with this book. Ya akhi, why life miserable? This is our response to this alim. If the argument is convincing and the things are clear that this is not the wudu of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa, then why are you in so distress? Khalas, do the wudu of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. But subhanallah, you see, brothers and sisters, sometimes there is a limit. There is a limit. Yani this person now realized what is the truth. But subhanallah. Anyways, so these deviations, these changes, so many of them were done. So many. The first deviation that what they did was to stop the people from narrating the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Aisha narrates. Aisha says, one night I saw my father. My father did not sleep the whole night. He was sleepless. He was just walking around in distress. So I asked him, Father, what is the matter? You're not sleeping. This is when he was the Khalifa. He said, I don't know. There's something bothering me. In the morning, I saw him picking up 500 hadith that he had written with his own hands. Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He took them and he threw them into the fire. He burnt 500 hadith that he had himself written down. So they stopped people from narrating ahadith. And then the famous saying of the second Khalifa, what is it? Hasbuna Kitabullah. Khalas. The book of Allah is enough for us. We don't need a hadith. Because once you have the hadith, the fada'il of Ahlul Bayt starts showing up. The fada'il of Ahlul Bayt, Ali ibn Abi Talib, al-Hasan wal-Hussein alayhim assalam, Ahlul Bayt. They didn't want that. So they pushed it aside. To the point where Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he became the Khalifa now, they've done a lot of work. They had done a lot of work to dilute down the status of Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. To dilute them down. Okay? Because by that time, as I just told you, the Islamic State grew. Bilad al-Sham became under the umbrella of Islam during the time of the second Khalifa. Bilad Faris, so all these people are new to Islam. And if they don't listen to a hadith about the fada'il of Ahlul Bayt, then how would they know who are Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam? So you see now a big portion of Muslims do not realize and recognize who are Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam because they hid the ahadith. They didn't allow them to mention the ahadith. So Imam Ali alayhi salam was dealing with these dynamics. So one of the uses for Al-Imam al-Hassan, Amir al-Mu'mineen, told him, go to the Masjid and tell the Muslims in the month of Ramadan they should not be praying Salat al-Taraweeh, the Surah, in Jama'ah. Pray it individually. Each one individually. This is the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Imam al-Hassan goes. Now Imam Ali didn't go himself. He sent Imam al-Hassan salamullah alayhi, again to prepare him now for the Khilafah, for Imamah, to prepare him how to deal with situations. So he goes, Imam al-Hassan, he tells the people, Ya Muslims, Ma'ashir al-Muslimin, this is not the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. You should not be praying Salat al-Taraweeh in Jama'ah. The Prophet did not pray like this. There was an uproar in the masjid. People started crying, shouting, and they started saying, Wa sunnata Umara. Oh, for the Sunnah of Umar. Yani, did they know this? Who established this? They knew who established it. Umar ibn al-Khattab, yani it was so clear. Yet, what happened? They refused to change. So Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam came back to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He said, Ya Abata, I told them they shouldn't be doing this. But this is what happened. He said, you leave them. Khalas. We told them. We've done our due diligence. Now, if this were other than Imam Ali alayhi salam, what would have he done? He would have taken the sword and by force he would have made them, do what he wanted. But this is not the strategy of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. Imam Ali teaches, فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطَرٍ. You are a reminder, but you don't have control over them. And the other ayah, لَا إِكْرَاهَ فِي الدِّينِ. There is no compulsion in the religion. He guides, he teaches them, he told them this is not the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and they knew that. They knew it was the Sunnah of so and so, yet they chose to follow it. Khalas. You choose to follow it, that's you. So he utilized Al-Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam in such context to bring the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Second, when the Battle of Jamal took place, so those people, Talha, Zubair, prepared the army, Aisha, they took the army to Basra. As I told you, the governor of Basra was a governor of Uthman. And so he told them, come here and I will prepare an army to support you against Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. So they went to Basra. What does Imam Ali alayhi salam do? He sends Imam al-Hassan and Ammar ibn Yasir to Kufa. He says, go to Kufa and get us their support. So Imam al-Hassan and Ammar go to Kufa. Now, maybe he sent Ammar with Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. Now, although the people of Kufa were familiar with who is Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why? Because the first governor, after they conquered Persia, when they conquered Persia, Umar ibn al-Khattab turned to Salman al-Farisi, rahimahullah. He said, Salman, these are your people. You're Iranian, they're Iranians. So why don't you become their governor? You know, you guys understand each other. Salman looked at him. He said, I have to ask the permission of my imam, my master. Yani, you don't give me orders here. I don't listen to your orders. So interestingly, Umar told him, okay, go ask him and then come back to me. Okay. This is in Kitab al-Ihtijaj by Tabrasi, the story. So Salman goes, asks Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullah alayhi, says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar asked me to become the governor of what we call today Iraq, yani Bilad, you know, Faris, Iraq and Iran and that whole region. What do you say? Al-Mada'in. Al-Mada'in. What do you say? Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi told him, it's better to have you as the governor. At least you understand the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know what is halal and haram, what's haqq and batil, what's right and wrong. It's better to have you than to have someone who has no clue what is religion. So I give you permission to go. Go. So Salman then comes back to Umar and he says, okay, my imam gave me permission. I will accept the position as the governor of Mada'in. So he goes to Mada'in. Interestingly, brothers and sisters, just as a side note, Umar ibn al-Khattab knew that Salman was a Shia. Yani if you could find the hardcore Shia of the day, it was Salman. Yet he still appointed him as a governor. Yani this is an important lesson for today. I hope people today, they learn this. And instead of depriving Shia from positions because they're Shia, I mean, you claim to follow the sunnah of the second man. He appointed Shia. He appointed a Shia. So that's something to be learned from, at least for those guys who don't give position to people who are Shia because they are Shia. Yani, subhanallah. Nonetheless, so Salman goes there to Mada'in. Now, what does he do when he's in Mada'in? Who does he speak about? Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. The fada'il of Ahlul Bayt. So the people in that region were familiar with Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam and the fada'il of Ahlul Bayt through the barakat of Salman rahimahullah. Okay. Interestingly, this is just a side note, in the Levine in Bilad al-Sham, the third Khalifa sends Abu Dhar rahimahullah in an exile in Bilad al-Sham. So who plants the seed of Tashayyu' in Bilad al-Sham? Abu Dhar rahimahullah. So you see, even though a handful of people after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam remained loyal to Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali told those guys, stay, don't revolt against the first Khalifa because they will kill you. And they don't want you to be killed. Because he knew these guys, even though they're a handful, Ammar, Salman, Miqdad, Hudayfa, etc., those handful, Abu Dhar, they're handful, but these handful of people will play a very important role. So he wanted to maintain them, look after them. And this is a very important lesson we'll find tomorrow with Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam when he made the peace treaty. When he made the peace treaty with Muawiyah, he also wanted to save and protect the handful of the loyal Shia, those who were very sincere to him. He wanted to protect them. So these were one of the, so Imam al-Hassan also saw this, saw how his father protected the Shia. And those Shia, despite their few numbers, they played a big role. So this is something important, you know, and something interesting. Now I don't want to digress from my discussion, but Abu Dhar, rahimahullah, he goes to Bilad al-Sham. He goes to Bilad al-Sham and he starts talking about Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. He finds a student. His name was Usama al-Nakha'i. So Abu Dhar started teaching Usama al-Nakha'i and Usama became a Shia. Usama later became a teacher of a man called Amr al-Maqsus. So Amr al-Maqsus became a Shia. Amr al-Maqsus became the teacher of Muawiyah, the son of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Muawiyah the second. So Muawiyah the second became a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. And hence when Yazid got killed or died or whatever happened to him, Muawiyah came and they told him, you're the Khalifa now. He ascended the pulpit. He said, people, my grandfather fought against Ali ibn Abi Talib. My father killed al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And what they did is wrong. And I do not want to follow their traditions. So I will not accept this khilafah. I give it to Ali ibn al-Hussein ibn Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. And he comes down from the pulpit. Marwan ibn al-Hakam was there. Marwan ibn al-Hakam. He says, what have you done? We've been, fighting for this with tooth and nail, and now you're giving it all away? So they conspired to poison him. So they poisoned him and they got rid of him. And Marwan then took the khilafah. So Marwan then came to the power. Okay, that's what happened. So you see Abu Dhar, even though he was a lone man, but subhanallah, his influence came into the palace of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, subhanallah, in the heart of Bilad al-Sham. You see how important they played, what a role they played? So the people of Kufa were familiar with Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam. They were not completely strange because of Salman. So Imam Ali alayhi salam sends Ammar and Imam al-Hassan salamullahi alayhi. They go. Maybe he sent Ammar because he's the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So there is more weight. Plus he's older. Imam al-Hassan in his early 30s. People look at him and they think he's a young man. Plus, some people may not be familiar with the status of Ahlul Bayt. Like I told you guys, the Khulafa deprived the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt, so they did not allow people to mention. So to support him, he sent Ammar with him. But Imam al-Hassan goes there, he gives the khutbah as an Imam, salamullah. He is also an Imam, but he is not the Imam of the time, but he is an Imam ma'soom. So he gives the khutbah, and mashallah, he encourages the people of Kufa. They all come to support him, and they go and join Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in Battle of Al-Jamal, so they win the battle. So Amir al-Mu'mineen used Imam al-Hassan there. After the Battle of Siffin, the Battle of Siffin against Muawiyah, Muawiyah then played a trick. He managed to stop the war by raising the Qur'an on the spears as he was losing the battle. They raised the Qur'an on the spears and they said, let's judge by the book of Allah. Let's judge by the book of Allah. They knew that they were losing, khalas, so they used a trick. This trick, unfortunately, fooled many people in the army of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. So the army split. Imam Ali was forced to stop the war. And then these people forced the Imam to appoint Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, and Muawiyah's army appointed Amr ibn al-As, that those two become negotiators to negotiate at the terms. Amir al-Mu'mineen was against this from the beginning. He said, first of all, there should not be negotiations with Muawiyah. Second of all, you want to send a negotiator, don't send Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. This guy has no clue what he's talking about. Send Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. He's a good person to negotiate with Amr ibn al-As. He knows how to deal with him. But they refused, so they forced the Imam salamullah alayh to have those two people. Amr ibn al-As fools Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. He says, come here, Abu Musa. He says, this Ali and Muawiyah, these guys, they've killed so many Muslims, and I think both of them are useless. We should get rid of both of them, and you and I appoint Abdullah ibn Umar as the Khalifa. So let's go in front of the Muslims and we tell them, listen, Ali is wrong, Muawiyah is wrong, Abdullah ibn Umar should be the Khalifa. Do you agree? He said, yes. Khalas, done. So they come, Muslims are gathered. Amr ibn al-As says, Abu Musa, you're the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. You're older than me. You deserve to go first. Tafadhal, please go. He said, oh, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So he comes, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, representing Imam Ali, although Imam Ali did not approve of his representation. But he says, people, we should forget about Ali ibn Abi Talib and Muawiyah, and even though I am representing Ali, I disapprove of Ali, and I remove Ali from the Khilafah like I remove my imamah. And he took off his imamah. And I appoint Abdullah ibn Umar as the Khalifa. He comes down. Amr ibn al-As goes up after him. What does Amr ibn al-As say? People, you just heard the representative of Ali taking Ali away from this position. I approve Muawiyah in this position like I put my imama on. And so he fooled Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. And he said, therefore, Muawiyah should be the Khalifa of the Muslims. So there was a huge problem. So then immediately Abu Musa called a name to Amr ibn al-As, said, you so-and-so, kada. And he also called him وأنتهم كذا. وفعلا خوش وصف من واحد وصف الثاني خوش وصف. على أي حال الأوصاف الموجودة بالقرآن الكريم فمثله كمثل الكذا إن تحمل عليه يلهث. وهذا أبو موسى سمى ذاك هالشكل. هذا قال له أنت همين مثله كمثل الكذا يحمل أسفارا. انتهم هذاك. وهو واقعا خوش وصف واحد وصف الأخ. المهم. So this is how they started arguing. And the army then split. Imam Ali then sends Imam al-Hassan, salamullah, because now there is a huge disagreement. There's chaos among the Muslims. So Imam al-Hassan comes. He says, people, listen. Imam Ali alayhi salam is the cousin of Rasulullah. And he is the one who was there for Islam from day one. He is your Imam and your leader. He did not approve of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. He told you he should not represent because this man does not understand religion. He appointed Abdullah ibn Umar. If Abdullah ibn Umar was worthy of being appointed, his father Umar ibn al-Khattab should have appointed him. His father did not see him worthy of being a Khalifa. Umar ibn al-Khattab, when he chose 6 people to choose one of them as the Khalifa, he chose a Shura. His son was not one of them. Yani he did not see his son fit for leadership. So Imam al-Hassan used logic. He says, if Abdullah was really fit, why didn't his father appoint him? So people like, oh, okay, interesting. Very good argument. Very good argument. So he tells them, people, plus when Imam Ali, you brought him these 2 people, arbitrator, negotiators. He told them, you judge by according to the Qur'an, not your desires. And they did not follow the ruling of the Qur'an. Therefore, both of their judgments is invalid. And so people become, oh, you're right, absolutely right. And hence, he managed to diffuse the situation a little bit. And the people came to support Imam Ali alayhi salam against the Khawarij, the Kharijites, who split from the army of the Imam. So you see how Imam Ali alayhi salam used Imam al-Hassan in very important matters, serious matters. 1, to restore the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. 2, in the battle of Jamal, to recruit people from Kufa to join Imam Ali alayhi salam. 3, after the chaos of Siffin, he came and he diffused the situation and he managed to win the support for, you see all these strategies and all these preparations that Imam Ali alayhi salam was doing for his son. After the battle of Siffin, he wrote a beautiful letter, number 31 in Nahjul Balagha, which I recommend the mu'mineen to read to his son. Part of that is what we started with. Part of it, he tells him, son, I admonish you and advise you of taqwa Allah, fear Allah. This letter, brothers and sisters, is for us, not for his son. Imam al-Hassan is an imam. Plus, this letter suggests to us that, Imam Ali was teaching these values to Imam al-Hassan, not just after Siffin. No, his whole life he was preparing him for this. But it's a lesson for all of us, brothers and sisters. One thing important, brothers and sisters, when Imam Ali wrote this letter to Imam al-Hassan, Imam Hassan now, alayhi salam, was in his mid to late 30s now. Mid to late 30s. 34, 35, 36, give or take. So, it tells us that we need to continue guiding our children even when they go older. But in order to do so, you have to establish a connection, as I mentioned yesterday. That connection must be there with them from they were little, so that even when they grow old, you still advise them. Some people have a misconception that once my child marries, khalas, that's it. I don't need to, khalas, now he's a grown-up man. No. In fact, when they get married, especially in this day and age, the age of social media, make sure you sit down with your children and advise them what is marriage. Teach them what are the expectations of marriage. Yani when the wife is sick sometimes, when the husband is sick, what should you expect? You come home and, for example, the husband may have a misconception. He's a new groom. He has a misconception that whenever I come home, food has to be ready. So the food is not ready, he gets upset. No, you sit down with him, tell him, hold on, calm down. Let's understand the situation. Why is the food not ready? Things like this. If the wife is ill, help her, support her. If the husband, for example, cannot afford to buy this item and that item, then don't put so much pressure on the husband. Take it easy. These are important advices. When a problem arises, how do you deal with this problem? You teach your children. My brothers and sisters, it's important to establish this relationship between the parents and their children and to continue guiding them even when they grow old. If you have that kind of a relationship, they'll listen to you because you've worked on it for years. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam worked on that relationship for years. And so he's, until now, after Siffin, towards the end of the life of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, he's still guiding his son and writing letters to him, and he is informing him and instructing him. So this is something important, brothers and sisters. We need to continue guiding our children. And to the children, nobody loves you in this dunya after Allah and the Imam al-Hujjah ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif more than your parents. They care about you. So seek their guidance, seek their advice. But the advice I have for the parents, you need to establish the connection. If you did not work on establishing the connection and your son or daughter does not come and ask you, then don't blame them because you did not work on that connection. If you always criticize the son or the daughter, always criticize her or him, then you're distancing him away from you. Don't compare your children sometimes to each other. That's wrong. Don't tell your son, look at your brother. For example, your brother has studied, he became a doctor, and you're what? This is wrong. You're now creating animosity between the two brothers. That's what you're creating. Don't do this. Compare the son to himself. What do I mean by this? For example, you tell your son, do you remember, for example, do you remember when you were in grade 6? And mashallah, your grades were all A's? Say, yeah, I remember this. Okay. Well, now you're in grade 8. What is happening? Why are you getting C's? It means you're able to get A's because in grade 6 you got A's. I wouldn't tell, look at your brother, he's getting all A's. Why are you getting all C's? Do you see the difference? When you do that, you created animosity now. But when you compare him to himself, in grade 6 you got A's. In grade 8 you can also get A's. Because you're capable. So he'd be like, yeah, that's true. So what do you need? What happened? Why are you not getting C's? Let's understand the problem. Once you understand the problem, you try to find solutions for it. And you try to help your son or daughter. You see what I'm saying, brothers and sisters? Don't create animosity between the siblings as parents. Because then you'll distance them away from each other. They don't want to talk to each other. And don't create animosity between you and the children. Because they will distance themselves away from you as well. But at the same time, children, once there is that love between the parents, you also need to create that love back. Listen to them. Don't hide things. I get sometimes as a principal, sometimes I get students who do a problem. So they come to my office and they tell me, Shaykh, please don't tell my dad. Please. I tell him to the contrary. You should tell your dad. I tell him, I will not tell your dad. You're going to tell your dad. I told them, don't worry, I'm not going to tell your dad, but you are going to tell the dad. They said, no, I don't want to tell him. I said, no, you need to learn not to hide anything from your parents because your parents love you. Even when you do something wrong, of course, you deserve a consequence. But even that consequence is because they love you. They care about you. They don't want you to repeat this mistake again. Don't learn to hide things from your parents. So that's what I try to teach. So children should not hide, but at the same time, parents should also build what? The connection and the bridges. And that's what important lesson we learn from Imam al-Hassan salamullahi alayhi and Imam Ali, building those bridges. From the day he was born until the shahada of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. Imam Ali is with him, involving him, uses him, sends him in very important matters, political matters, religious matters, serious matters. He's preparing him because he's got that connection with the son, the father and the son. And indeed, you see that bond. when the Imam Salamullah alayhi, Amir al-Mu'mineen, was hurt in Masjid al-Kufa. Look at Imam al-Hassan Salamullah alayhi. Once Ibn Muljam struck Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullah alayhi, and he fell in Masjid al-Kufa. His face is covered in blood, Salamullah alayhi. And he said his famous saying, Fuztu Rabbil Kaaba, I have won by the Lord of the Kaaba. A cry was heard from the skies. تهدمت والله أركان الهدى قتل الإمام المرتضى قتل ابن عم المصطفى قتلت قلت قيا بسيف أشقايا الأشقياء بالله يا الناعف جعد قلبي ومرتب صوتك لا علي مر وسمات كان عادي ما تمم بمحراب سجدت بالله يا الناعف جعتنا بهذا المصاب قالها يا زينب زيد لونين ابوك نطبر والراس نصير صاحت خويا يا حسن يا حسين قوموا لابونا تراه بالمسجد انصاب. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam rushed to the masjid, and Imam al-Hussein, when he saw his father's face covered in blood, he cried, Aywa abata, Aywa aliya, what a loss. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam orders Imam al-Hassan, he says, Ya Bunay, you lead Salat al-Fajr among the Muslims. And he, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, prayed from sitting down. Imam al-Hassan led the Jama'ah. Then he took his father along with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam back to the house. They supported him as they approached the house. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam told them, leave me alone now. I will enter the house myself walking. He said, why, Ya Aba? Why do you want to walk? We can help you. He says, no, I do not want Zainab alayha salam to see me. And you two are carrying me. You two are supporting me. I'm worried about her feelings. So he enters the house and he goes into his room. Zainab alayha salam comes in. She sees the face of her father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, covered in blood. She cries, Aywa bata, Aywa aliya, Aywa day'ata ba'dak. Oh my father, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what a loss. Imam al-Hassan, al-Hussein alayhim as-salam are now surrounding their father. The children of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they come, they surround their father. They bring a doctor. He takes a vein from a sheep and he inserts it into the wound of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. As he raises the vein, he looks at it. He says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, i'ahad ahdak وأوصي وصيتك فإن ضربة هذا اللعين وصلت إلى رأسك. O Amir al-Mu'mineen, make your will, for the poison and the sword of this enemy of Allah has gone too deep into your wound. Yani you will not be saved from this. Imam al-Hassan is there. He is witnessing this tragedy, this calamity. He cries. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam comforts his sons, comforts his daughters. He says to them, do not cry. Innaha wallahi al-Jannah. I am going to Jannah. Then Zainab alayha salam comes to see Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayh. دخلت عليه ناشرة شعرها لاطمة خدها وهي تنادي. Oh father, I have a question to ask you. What is it, my daughter? I want to ask you about the hadith of Ayman about Karbala. Is it true what I will go through? He cried, salamullahi alayh. And he said, yes, my daughter Zainab, what she spoke of is true. And you will return to Kufa again. But this time you will return without your brothers. You will not have your father. You will return as a captive for Bani Umayyah. She cried, حيدر يا ابويا ما تجينا يا بتشوفنا شلون انسبينا والناس تتفرج علينا يا بصرنا نتستر بدينا. Then when the time came, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam gathered his children around him. Imam al-Hassan was there. And Amir al-Mu'mineen stretched his arms and legs, and he says, here I see in front of me your grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. And he says to me, come ya Ali, come to me. And here are the angels, they've decorated Jannah for my arrival. He said, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah wa fadat ruhuhu at-tahira. Your Imam has been killed, ya Shia. Ali ibn Abi Talib has died. Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein alayhim as-salam took care of the ghusl and the kafan. Then they walk in the middle of the night as per the wasiyah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, carrying the na'sh of the Imam from behind while the angels carrying from the front, until they arrived at a place where the na'sh was set. They dug that grave. It was written, this is the grave prepared by Nuh the prophet for Ali, the successor of the final prophet. So they buried him there in Najaf. As they were coming back, Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam hears a cry coming from a distance. So he approaches the cry. He finds an old man sitting down, a blind man, crying, weeping. They said, old man, why are you crying? Al-Imam al-Hassan wal-Hussein alayhim as-salam asked him. He said, there was a man who used to come to me every night and give me some food, look after me, take care of me. But for the past 3 nights, he has not showed up. I am tired, I am hungry, and I miss him. I don't know where he is. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam asked, old man, do you know who this man is? He said, no, I'm blind, I cannot see, but I can smell a fragrance, a beautiful fragrance coming from him whenever he used to come with utmost compassion, utmost mercy. He used to give me the food. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam cried and said, Ya Shaykh, that was our father Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib.
عظم الله لك الأجر. We just returned back from burying him. He's left this dunya. The old man started crying even harder. He said, take me to his grave. They took the old man to the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi assalam. He threw himself on the qabr and he cried, Aywa Aliyah, Aywa Imama, until he died right there on the qabr of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. So Imam al-Hassan wal-Hussein took care of his ghusl and kafan and burial. Abu Hussein ما تمم صيامه لفى العيد ولا ديتام. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Raise your hands in the dua, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, هذه لحظات استجابة الدعاء. Now that we are in the majlis of Kareem Ahl al-Bayt alayhi assalam, shedding our tears for his father Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi, and for his loss and his pain and his tragedies. Inshallah, the gates of dua are opened and the hajat would be accepted and fulfilled. الكثير أوصونا بالدعاء. نسأل الله عز وجل ببركة كريم أهل البيت عليهم السلام أن يستجيب الدعوات وتقضى الحاجات إن شاء الله جميعا. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. 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 اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم 10 times together. يا الله 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 يا الله. إلهي بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها اكشف عنا السوء يا الله. اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا، كفر عنا سيئاتنا، وتوفنا مع الأبرار مع محمد وآله الأطهار. اللهم اقض حوائج المؤمنين والمؤمنات، شافي وعافي جميع مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات، على الخصوص من أوصونا بالدعاء منهم. اللهم اقض حوائجهم، شاف مرضاهم، يسر أمورهم، ارحمهم برحمتك الواسعة يا أرحم الراحمين. إلهنا نسألك بباب الحوائج الإمام المجتبى يا الله، اجعلنا وذريتنا إلى يوم الدين من شيعة الإمام أمير المؤمنين المتقين يا الله، ومن خدمة الإمام الحسين المخلصين يا الله. وارزقنا شفاعة محمد وآل محمد في الدنيا وفي القبر وفي الآخرة يا الله. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. يا أبا محمد، يا حسن بن علي، أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إن إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. Everyone together. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا. يا كريم أهل البيت يا وجيها الله اشفع لنا عند الله. حاجات اطلبوا حوائجكم. Ask for your needs. Inshallah they'll be fulfilled on this holy night.